last TRAC meeting, and I also have seen several things talking about the community bus plan and the potential for reduced routes. And now that there is currently not a person representing DART on the TRAC, I wanted to just add some perspective from those of us who use both fixed route buses and the DART Care Ride program about having people understand the impact of when a route changes, we cut back on what people can use that need care ride. And so I just wanted to have everyone thinking in those terms as well, because that it is a group of people that can't really just use a lot of other options besides using care ride. And so wanted that basically factored into everyone's thinking, is to know that matters to a lot of people. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Gloria. I'd also like to welcome, we have a board member with us here today, Josh Shulman. Thank you for being in attendance. And now we'll move on to the chair's report. First, I want to let you know that right after our meeting last month, myself and members of the staff here from PSTA went to a regional transportation meeting. We met with county commissioners, and we also met with mayors from across Pinellas County. There were informative presentations from various stakeholders discussing the future of transit at all levels in Pinellas County. PSTA presented its need for additional funding in order to expand or maintain service. Many in attendance were understanding that new funding streams need to be created in order to sustain and grow transit in the county. Second, a summary of the monthly board meeting. The board passed the 2 action items that we approved at our last meeting: the bus paratransit adjustments and the SR 60-275 interchange letter of support. Also, PSTA during the board meeting passed that during the federal government shutdown, all federal government employees were allowed to ride PSTA for free. What else did I miss? And at the next board meeting, the main board meeting on February 27th, afterwards there will be a open house presentation about the Central Avenue Bus Rapid Transit Program. One last thing, I'd like to thank our committee member Brian Grant for calling attention to a lighting issue at the bus stop located near the corner of Belcher and 14th Street Southeast in Largo. As engaged riders, we can improve services by bringing even the most minor issue to the light of all staff here at PSTA. All right, so we'll move on to Dave with the Forward Pinellas report.
Thanks, Mark. I'll remind you guys that Forward Pinellas meets just a couple days after us, so it meets this week, and you're all invited. It meets down at Court Street in downtown Clearwater, and this is the superset. All of the planning and streets and the like, it's wonderful. These guys take into account transit, but also roads and traffic and bike lanes and parks and all of that. And you see there a much more positive look about now complete streets. So although they're working with FDOT and the lanes and these big interchanges and $1 billion to get this freeway and that, we're also seeing now the emphasis on neighborhoods, the MLK district, Drew Street. So when you go there, you leave inspired. I certainly do. Now, I happened to miss last meeting last month because my car broke down. However, what we saw was the presentation. There is a lot of overlap. We saw the presentation about community bus that we saw here about the reduction, and so again, you see some overlap. But the main thing we saw was about the Alt 19, a big presentation on that, which you are, again, you can go to the website. Alt 19 is now starting to be designed, 19 being a freeway, or as the new modern term, a car sewer, to get cars flushed from one end of the county to the other and popped out in Pasco. Alt 19 is being looked at to make it a neighborhood highway, and if you think how it runs, the number was 38 miles from one end, from Bay Pines, from east of Bay Pines, through all of those, right downtown Clearwater, Fort Harrison, all the way to Dunedin, to Tarpon Springs, to the Pasco County line, and trying to make those streets safe for pedestrians, for bicycles. That's what complete streets means. Using what's called a road diet, and again, crosswalks and safe neighborhoods. It is a huge project because it involves essentially every city on the west side, Dunedin and Tarpon and St. Pete and Seminole and the like. And there is a website for you to go look at it. And for those of you that are interested, you can attend these meetings with Forward Pinellas. It is inspiring and wonderful. I'd ask you guys to do it. Thank you. I'd also be glad to talk to you about it later, about all the great things going on in this county. Finally, we're starting to see it really move that way. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dave. So now we'll move into our action items. And the first one is going to be the approval of the meeting minutes from our last time we were together. That's on January 15th. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting? Is there any amendments that need to be made to the minutes from the last meeting? Okay. Yes.
You already know this, but it's Elizabeth with an S, not a Z.
I'll make that change.
Very minor, but always been an S.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes with the amendment?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion by Tim, and second?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, the next item on our action item list is the electric bus program with Henry Lukasik.
Good afternoon, members of the TRAC. I see lots of new faces. So, for those that don't know, I'm Henry Lukasik. I am PSTA's Director of Maintenance. I oversee fleet and facilities. So, in your packets today is an action item for your approval, and that's to award BYD a contract for 2 more all-electric buses. For those that do know, maybe you've rode the electric buses. We have 2 in service right now. You can catch those buses downtown St. Petersburg on our circulator service, the Looper, and I'm happy to report that they've been on the street for about 3 months now, and there have been no issues whatsoever, and getting a lot of good positive feedback about how quiet they are. And of course, who doesn't like a new bus? It's like a new car. Little background, and then I have a kind of a show and tell for the TRAC committee. Little background, our planning department has been very successful being awarded low-no funds, and that is for low and no emission vehicles through the Federal Transit Administration. We were successful in being awarded one back in 2017 for $1 million, and I can say we are happy to say that for 2018 we received another award for $1 million, so a total of $2 million. And our plan is to purchase a total of 4 more all-electric buses, same as the ones that we've had. So our fleet will be 6 in total all-electric buses. So we're very excited about that. We'll come back to this in a moment, but my show and tell is a lot of times I get asked, how are the electric buses doing? And I'm going to show this committee something that people rarely ever get to see. You'll be the first group of people to see this, and that is, I'm going to show you how the electric buses are doing in real time. So, how we track the electric buses is through this program right here. 22 satellites right now are trained in on bus number 18110, which, as you can see, this is real time, currently out there on the e-Looper service. And what maintenance department uses this for is analytics. How are the buses doing? How are they performing? So in real time, we can tell exactly what is happening. Right here is a map. That is exactly where the bus is right now. And down here to ask the question, which is, well, how long is it going to last out there? You see right here, in real time, is kind of a countdown, right? So we all know that because this is an electric bus, it's kind of like your cell phone when we say state of charge. So I may abbreviate that in future presentations as just SOC, or just call it state of charge. So this is like your fuel tank for an electric bus. There is 62% remaining on the battery, and there's 120 miles left on that, or time-wise, about 11 hours. So distance, mileage, and time actually have a relationship, right, depending on what that bus is doing. Looking over here, you see some other analytics. What is the bus doing at this time? Well, right now it's idling. It's not really idling like a diesel bus does. It's just parked there. probably at a layover or a break. You may see some other things pop up as I'm speaking, driving or recovering. I'll come back to recovering in a moment. This here kind of shows, as the battery is used, what has been happening throughout the day, and you can see things are changing as we speak. So this is, again, in real time. Over here you see a couple different screens. One, speed. We know how fast the bus is going at any given time. And this one over here is power, okay? Think of it as like if you have a car, the RPM, okay? The greater number of RPM, or in this case, the more work that the bus is doing, whether driving or with all of the electronics on, means how much power is being consumed at this time. You can see that right now, just sitting there, about 11 kilowatts. That's our unit of measurements, kilowatts. As you can see, the bus is actually driving now, so as it's driving, it's consuming more electricity. Now, what you may see on the power gauge is it actually goes backwards into the negative, and that's important. So what that is called recovery. Now, as you've probably heard me in some previous presentations with our hybrid buses, we talk about regenerative braking, right? What that basically means simply is energy, electrical energy, kinetic energy, that normally would have been lost through braking or just the bus slowing down, is recaptured by the bus and is stored back into the batteries. So on average, you can see it, there it is recovering as we speak. What that means is right now our regenerative percentage is 30%. So that really means is if the bus consumes 100 kilowatts, we are able to recapture 30 of those kilowatts just by braking and slowing down. So in effect, we only consumed 70. So it just keeps the bus out there a little longer each day. So this is, I don't have a lot of time, but I just wanted to show members of the TRAC that this is the type of analytical tools that we have at our disposal so that we know exactly how the bus is performing. Real quickly, I get asked about top three questions I get asked every time I go somewhere. How long can the bus stay out there? So average range. So we have seen the range getting better as the bus is being used. Right now we are sitting at about 190 miles on a single charge, or approximately 15 hours. So it is getting better. How long do you generally use it out there per day right now? Typically about 8 hours or 110 miles. We have started kind of slow. We started with 4 hours, then it became 5, then it became 8, and based off our latest data, we can probably start seeing 9 or 10. So we're gonna just keep pushing an extra hour or two. How many hours does it take to recharge the bus? So after 8 hours or 110 miles, generally it comes back here at 50% state of charge. We plug it in, generally takes 2 hours. So the bus was totally at 0%, which I have to tell you cannot happen, all right? Bus can't go to 0. The bus won't allow that. So it would take approximately 4 hours if it was completely out of charge. And the other question I get asked is, what is the equivalent miles per gallon? So if we drive automobiles, we say, you know, hey, my car gets 20 miles a gallon, I get 13, whatever. So with an electric bus, if we were to go through the formula and create an equivalent, right now, this bus is generally at 19 miles per gallon equivalent. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Any quick questions on that before we come back to the action item? Yes, sir.
I have one quick question. While you was talking about the electric buses, I was wondering what's the difference between the hybrid buses and the electric?
Good question. So an all-electric bus is just that. There is no engine in it. There is no fuel in it like diesel or gasoline or CNG. On our hybrid buses, we have an engine, has a diesel engine. It's small, and all the diesel engine does is basically charge the batteries. So it's known as a series electric bus, which means the engine is not directly connected to the driveline to make it move. So that is the difference.
I know that there's clubs of people that own Priuses that try to make crazy miles per gallon, get 100 miles per gallon, 200 miles per gallon by learning tricks. Do we teach the drivers tricks of how to,
Absolutely.
by driving slow or starting or?
Absolutely. All PSTA drivers have gone through a training exercise because yes, these buses do drive differently than a traditional diesel bus or hybrid bus. And approximately 40% of the range of an electric bus is due to driver input.
I was imagining a contest at the end of the month of who managed to get the most.
On our electric buses, there's actually leafs or little graphs that kind of show you if you're doing good or not so good. So, okay, circling back, the action item before you is to recommend approval for a contract with BYD. That's who builds our electric buses for us. We have a contract with them for 2 more 35-foot buses, 2 more depot chargers, with a total not to exceed project cost of $1.9 million. And again, this will be courtesy of a low-no award to help fund that.
I just have one question before we go forward. Is this money coming from a grant, or is it coming from the general fund at PSTA?
Our CFO, Debbie Lace can.
Ask the question again?
Where's the money coming from?
For,
The buses.
oh, it's coming from a grant, for a low-no grant.
Okay.
There's a match to it as well that's coming from PSTA.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Oh, I see where it
These
is.
two are connected with the June 2017.
Yes, we're gonna order all 4 of them.
Are there any other questions? Dave? Okay. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the funds?
I would love to make that motion.
Dave, and do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
I'll yield.
All right, all in favor of the approving the funds, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you.
much.
All right, we'll move on to our last action item, and we have two Star Awards that were passed out to you. Before we go to Bob, we're going to do public comment that's specific to this action item from Gloria, because Gloria submitted one of the Star
Or
Awards.
Bob, do you want to just start showing them, or then I can just comment?
We're not going to show them because they've been emailed out, they have
Oh.
handouts, and I was going to start with you anyway. It's
okay.
this one.
The one
in
at
case you're looking.
East Drive.
Yes, that's the first one Gloria's going to tell you about.
That, I'm so excited about that one, because this is exactly what we are talking about in terms of somebody doing the right thing for transit riders specifically. The Route 62 runs up and down McMullen Booth by East Countryside Hospital. And Meese Drive empties onto McMullen Booth. There was absolutely no pedestrian crosswalk there. So a person taking the 62 north could get off on the hospital side, but if they came to catch the bus back, they had to go down a half a mile to cross the road safely. And the people working at the hospital were not doing that. They were just crossing McMullen Booth, which is not a slow-moving road. And it was, and at that even where the light is, it was not safe. And I, as part of another conversation with Pinellas County Public Works, I asked them, why is there not a pedestrian crosswalk there? Could you consider putting one in? Less than 2 months later, I swear, I was going by and it was there. They put it in that fast. The response was amazing. And it is now so much safer for someone taking the 62 to be able to just go across on the crosswalk and catch the opposite direction if they're coming up northbound and then catch the southbound, vice versa. And so it was a wonderful thing that Pinellas County Public Works did, based on someone asking for it.
Go ahead. If I can comment, I'm sorry that I missed this. I've been tremendously busy last week. But I was in physical therapy when I was in my motorcycle accident in that building, the one you see in the upper left corner, and actually had to do this walk. You have to walk half a mile down on the north side, on the east side of the road, cross over, then walk a quarter mile back if you want to use a legal crosswalk with a legal stop. And because there's no cross, or had been no crosswalk, the right turn lane folks coming out of that hospital are doing right on red, and they're honking at you like, "What are you doing? There's no crosswalk here, buddy."
That's right.
And especially if you were in a wheelchair, it was horrible. So I had actually been thinking about that, and it's just, my life has been so crazy, I never submitted it. That's wonderful. Thank you for submitting it, and thank them. That's wonderful.
But also the reminder for all of you is that if you see something, reach out to whoever you think might be able to correct it, and it may end up resulting in potential for another Star Award as well.
Yeah.
Do we vote on them separately, Bob, or do we vote on them in one?
I would recommend just, you can probably vote on them together unless you see a reason to vote on them separately.
No, that's fine, we'll do it together.
And it does, both of these, by the way, have met the criteria, and I'll let Mark talk about.
The second one was submitted by myself. If any of you are familiar with Park Street near Tyrone in St. Petersburg, Park Street in that area is very wide and fast-moving, just like McMullen Booth. But there's a lot of new development going on by the Target at the corner of Tyrone/Bay Pines, whichever side of the road you're on. And then a further up, they built a new plaza with a Kohl's and a Starbucks. And there's a brand new bus shelter there, and it's very artistic. You can see the picture of it there. It actually has a plaque on it. I'm not exactly sure who it was, but I forgot to take a picture of the pool. Oh, it's a picture of who designed it. I'm sorry. With the city of Seminole. So it's really nice. And then you can see how they just built ramps that go right up into the parking lot. You're level with the parking lot. You don't have to worry about going into the driveway. And then you can see how they also extended the sidewalk out to the street. And you can see there's actually an example of a woman there who's using the sidewalk. So I thought this was a great example because, sometimes it's so hard to find a Star Award in South County because St. Pete is just already pre-built. So, and there is new development coming into St. Petersburg, but it's all right up to the curb, so it's kind of like easy access already. So to go out and find something in South County, it was like, okay, great. I finally get to submit a Star Award. Okay.
In this shelter, if you get a chance at night when it lights up, the lights, the glass are multicolored. It's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
It really stands out. I we have some pictures, they weren't printing out properly, so my apologies. Any questions, comments on that one?
I've used that, and it does, it goes in the day and night. The glass has got this really nice, I don't know exactly what you'd call it, but it looks really great.
And that was part of
Colors.
also put in part of an art and transit grant back in 2008. That was a lot of fun. That was neat. Any other comments? All right, Mr. Chair, you wanna?
All right, do we have a motion to accept both of these Star Awards?
I motion.
Motion and a second?
Aye.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, the motion
We got
carries.
two winners. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us into our informational items that we have. The first one is going to be re-looking at our initiatives for this year's TRAC Committee. And Nicole and I will be working together with you on that one. If you look up at the screen,
This is from last
this is
month.
from our last meeting.
Gonna make it a little bigger.
Should have noticed that as everyone started putting on their glasses.
I said it, so you didn't have
Like,
to.
wait a second.
Appreciate it.
Hold on. Okay. How do I use this one?
There we go.
Couldn't you just adjust the percentage down there?
Oh, that too. This is still.
But that's legible now, so.
There
Now
we
it's
go.
really legible.
Perfect.
There we go. All right. So, these were the initiatives that we kind of brainstormed in our January meeting, and now we kind of like to narrow it down to one or two that's going to be our key focus for the remainder of 2019. So with that, Nicole, I'll let you start.
Yeah, so like Mark was saying, focus on two, with the TRAC Star as the TRAC Star Award being one of the two. Something that you all want to keep working towards this year as our TRAC committee for 2019. Essentially, what do you want to work on this year? What legacy do you want to leave as the TRAC members for 2019? These were some of the suggestions that you all gave us last month. So really for today, we want to go through and take a look at what does this mean? What do some of these suggestions mean? How realistic are they? What can we do? And then at the end of this meeting, really narrow it down to one, if not two, initiatives that you'd like to focus on. And then at the next meeting, ultimately vote on the one to do. Because it's a short year. A year goes by faster than you think. And it's already February. So by March, what do you want to work on for the remainder of 2019? So for those of you who suggested one of these, we can start from the top and see what you all think. Is this something that you want to move forward with? So transit ambassadors, promoting our PSTA services. That includes programs, marketing campaigns, really anything that PSTA has to offer. It includes teaching people how to ride the bus. That is actually one of our programs. We do a how to ride program. Juan and I actually go out and teach people how to ride the bus, meet them at a bus stop. So that is one of our programs. So we could combine those two as promoting PSTA program services and campaigns. That's car-free living, our 52LX service. And so I think Mark was the one that promoted or put that one on the list.
And I think that, if we look at the list that's already up there, some of these can be combined into one more broad initiative. For example, if we like Nicole said, if we take, teaching people how to ride the bus, that can go into transit ambassadors, and we can kind of like bunch them all together and just have one big umbrella initiative that covers many things without just staying too focused.
We also have expanding Direct Connect. I think some folks, if I remember correctly, they wanted to identify new locations for Direct Connect stops. That is actually something that I know that planning is currently thinking about, especially considering our the service cuts information that we provided to you last month. So we are thinking about Direct Connect stops. Not sure where those would be yet, but we're talking about it.
Is Direct Connect more like an LX? Are you saying like a 52? Is it a nonstop type of route?
No, actually, so our Direct Connect service is our partnership with Uber and United Taxi, where we provide $5 discount on rides to or from 24 locations in the county. And those locations are located at bus stops.
Okay.
Well, have we yet got any data as who's going where? I know Uber had been keeping that top secret. They don't want to know how many times, how many people. Did we ever get that data?
We are getting that data now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that would, in that case, that would make that more interesting to me. Because we'd have data.
Exactly.
Because when they
Well, I
were
know the
keeping
plan
it
department has
secret, we would just be guessing, by golly. I asked around, and people seem to go here a lot, but if we've got actual data.
That's the way it was.
Yeah, I
and that's
know.
the way it has been. But just recently we started getting
Excellent.
some more ride-by-ride data, and their ridership is really growing on it.
Excellent, yeah, it seems really good. The technical term is push versus pull. Are we going to be pushing this analysis rather than pulling it from live data? Right. I'm teasing you here.
The next initiative we had on the list was bikes on buses. I know that we talked about this last time, and it seems like it's not quite a possibility to get more than two.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
I think, like Mark was saying, I think that'll go with the first one, because it's teaching people how to, because I see some people have no idea which direction their bike should go. And you have two bikes facing the same direction when they're supposed to be opposite of each other.
Yeah.
Forget to pull down, forget to put the thing back up, and you'll see a bus just riding with the thing down, because that could be a safety hazard for the bus driver, because you don't know how far he should stop behind a car without having to bike hit the car in front of them, I think that'll just add on to the first one.
So we can create an education
Yeah,
component
because
to
it's
that,
teaching
yeah.
people the ins and outs of putting things on the bus, putting bikes on the bus, and I don't think it should be by itself because sometimes the bus drivers will let a person come on with a bike, knowing that it's already 2 bikes on a bus. It depends on the driver.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this item on here was really more, how do we work to get a bike rack that fits more than 2
Yeah.
bikes on it? However, I heard that that was not feasible as far as safety goes, and if anyone else can speak to that. But otherwise, I think that that was, but.
It had been, I remember at a previous meetings like this, we had talked about putting more bikes on the buses, and they can't do 2 because it's some
Yeah.
regulation. One other thing I think that we also want to think about when we're looking at this list is the difference between an initiative, kind of like our goal, our theme, what's going to be driving us for the year, rather than a list of concerns or improvements, a wish list improvements that we would like to see staff take into consideration. So, when we're looking at this list, I think we need to keep a good balance between the two, knowing the difference, remembering the difference between initiative, goal, and wish list.
Absolutely, thanks.
One of my concerns about the way bikes are put on racks is there's an issue with courtesy. In other words, I might have a bike on a rack and then someone will jam it against my bike and do damage to it. So they're not being very considerate when they put the bike on. So they have all these sharp edges and things on their bike, and that's an issue. So I wonder if there's any type of training where they could be more aware of how they put their bike on without damaging it.
Absolutely, that could be a part of how to use the bike rack
Correctly.
education in some way, making sure that we talk about courtesy and being conscious of other people's bikes as well.
Yes.
With the availability of cameras and such, is there any possibility of looking into mounting some on the back? Legality and safety and...
Yeah, you have to have the operator see the person's.
Well, that's why I was saying with cameras.
With somebody taking their bike off and the operator pulls away because they can't see them.
Well, that's why I was saying with cameras, because you
And they
have to
also,
have visibility.
It's a texting and driving thing.
I think it's most of the incidents that happen that are not our fault are rear-ending. I don't think we want any passengers back there without observation.
And so we are talking about wish list. I know this probably falls into a wish list, having real-time electronic boards at our transit centers. But we can keep.
Don't we have those now?
Not at all of them.
Oh.
Some of them, yes. I think most of them. Dave, I think this was you. You had route maps or creating new fun maps based on your current location, transit centers. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Okay.
And then also advocating for transit-oriented development, which is developments that are created with transit access in mind.
And that's our Star Award.
And that is our Star Award, actually.
Yeah.
We're thinking about that.
So,
Okay.
I think, from my opinion, from looking at this list, now like the 2 that we had, well, now it's gone. But the one at the top and the one at the bottom were very good. She's changing it on me.
She is. She's starting to
There we go.
She's kind of on the fly. She's going to eliminate them. Yes.
Go back. The undo button is for.
Thank you. So, taking a look at what our top and bottom ones are, those sound more like initiatives, whereas, the ones in the middle are kind of like our wish list. And, we have staff here, they're hearing our concerns, because, the teacher in me is coming out when I want to say, is our goal really that we want to spend all year talking about, putting 2 more bikes on a bus, when we already know that the answer is no. So it's like, what can we do and what can we promote and what can we do best as a team to help PSTA, and we help them, they help us. So, working together for a common goal, common good. Go ahead.
I just have a question for PSTA, and that is one of the goals for PSTA to increase ridership? Would that be a goal? Because that, I mean, if we're gonna do an initiative, it should be.
Sure. In and of itself, it is not the goal. It's the measurement of whether we have achieved our other goals, right? So it is an important part of what we consider our scorecard, but it's the success factor in measuring the performance.
Well, it's means too. I mean,
Yes.
it's more financial too. I mean, the more riders we have, the better, the more we can improve the services.
So I think a lot of what you all talked about when you brainstormed was communication. It came back to communications. And so I think you hit it kind of nail on the head with this first concept of getting engaged in the communications. And what are those areas of communication that you think you can help PSTA best with? Even though they're not bolded, I like all of the other information that you've given us because it helps staff over the next year develop your agenda items to talk about things that we are doing and get your opinions on the things that are most important to you. So even though it may not be your initiative, it doesn't mean that we don't take initiative on your comments. So I'm quite pleased with the list.
Yeah. And if you meant talking about increasing ridership, that goes under our first initiative as transit ambassadors.
Yeah,
so how can we increase ridership? Well, here we go, and that's kind of coming up in our next item too. Dave.
I'm having some confusion because both the Forward Pinellas users and the TRAC group both have done initiatives, which is great. It's how you get on the record. And I'm recalling that we've done initiatives in the past, which was great. And if I'm remembering, is it here or the other group that we talked about regionalism, we talked about safety, and we talked about access, which is where STAR came from. It came from an initiative, and these were all great, right? Is that us or was it the other group?
That was us.
No,
that was us.
And
those were all examples of great initiatives about talking at this high level rather than how many buses, that's really a task or something very technical, and we can certainly be involved with folks.
So this is the third year of the TRAC initiative.
Yeah,
Right? So
and
the first year was
we've done two on the other
with
side.
this letter about safety, which the TRAC Star Award came out of.
Yeah.
And then the other one was regionalism. So we had a lot of like strategy discussion with the TRAC about regionalism, and then you all made a editorial opinion known to.
And by the way,
to greater
Flamingo
region.
has appeared, and we're thrilled, right? I mean, that's coming. It's soon, but we were certainly on the record of pushing towards that. And so those kind of initiatives, we get to at least rattle and make some noise and pound some drums and march around and let folks know that our voice, we're supposed to represent riders. And so initiatives, when we talk about transit-oriented development, saying, please, Pinellas, quit allowing folks to build great big apartment buildings on main roads while putting fences to let not people, to prevent them from getting to the bus stop, or building them with there's a freeway in the middle that you have to walk down a mile, over a mile, and back a mile to get back home. You can't even, and then give them big parking lots so that everyone has to ride a car. I mean, there has to be a way to say that. Again, I'll say, to beat a dead horse, I'm still livid about letting folks build two giant storage buildings at the corner of Central Avenue and 34th, where those should have been low-income housing. You're next to every bus in town, and we've got people's old couches and baseball card collections sitting there when those could have been in any industrial lot 5 miles away. All those, and so how do we say to someone, don't let that happen in the zoning, in the approval, in the land use? At least ask if you're within X blocks of transit, especially a primary line like the 34 and the CAD and the blah, 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 now the LX. Take that into account when approving construction. Those are the kind of things that are initiatives way at that high level. Like, we're mad as hell. Know about this. And that's where STAR came from. I'm real proud of STAR.
So just to sort of elaborate on that and to let you all know what's something that's coming up is we recently won a transit-oriented development planning grant from the Federal Transit Administration. administration to look at the Central Avenue BRT project corridor, and we're working with the cities along the corridor, Forward Pinellas, to develop a scope that will put out on the street for consultant assistance. So it will probably come here to your committee in midsummer, so probably July or August, and we'll talk about all the things we want to achieve with that scope, and then also what consultant that we've selected. So we'll put that on the agenda matrix, so you'll see something like that. But also what you're talking about is the element of urban design that, in terms of pedestrian access. And I think we're working with that.
But to the new people, they may not realize that what the output of some of those initiatives was a letter over all of our signatures that went to folks in Tallahassee, our representatives, the mayors of various cities, the council for Seminole or Largo or Gulfport, that said, hey, we're the transit rider advocate and we think this. You know, we want better bus stops, or we want better this or that. And that's pretty darn important. It's not like just some schmo stood up there for 3 minutes talking at the end of the council meeting. It's a letter on our letterhead that has our name to it. And that carries some weight, whether you're a Tallahassee representative, senator, someone on Forward Pinellas. That's what I wanted to say. Now I'll be quiet.
Can we fold something into that first one about public engagements like what you did at the Welcome Back?
Mm-hmm.
I think, and that was a question that I answered to Brad, is when he asked, well, what can we do to increase the ridership? That was what I had said. We ought to be doing more when we can get to these events.
Absolutely. And so just so everyone has some context, SPC campuses all have welcome back events for the new semester, and we traditionally go to as many of the welcome back events as we can make it. And Ed actually was able to join me at the SPC Downtown Center's welcome back event, and he helped talk to folks about making sure that they knew they rode for free with the U-Pass, answered questions or addressed concerns that folks had about finding routes, understanding the information, providing maps. People who are new to the area and didn't know the PSTA was around, or how to use the system map, how to use transit app. And really, when we table at these events, we're essentially promoting our PSTA services. We're answering questions, we're writing down comments. I'm not always able to answer the questions that folks have, and sometimes what they have to say I can't do anything about, but I try to take those comments to people who can do something about them, or at least make sure that those folks know that our riders are saying this or that. So Ed was able to join me at that event, and it was really helpful to have a second person there, because Juan and I are two people, and we're the ones that are usually out at the community type events, where we have our table with our route schedules for the area. So Clearwater, we use Clearwater routes. In St. Pete, we use St. Pete routes, making sure that folks who are not able to get to our transit centers have access to our information. So he was able to help me with that. And so I think that is generally included in the promoting PSTA services, but I can put on there attend community events.
I have a concern, especially the bottom one, the oriented development. I still, when I'm riding the bus, I still hear people saying that they wish that Williams Park was available, because people, especially in the downtown area of St. Pete, some people are still trying to get used to the various spots where most of the major routes would just come up to Williams Park, and it was easy for them to just walk around Williams Park and get to their bus. Now they have to figure out where 52, well, I forgot that the 52 don't goes downtown anymore. Some people think that the 52 does go downtown, but it doesn't. And I was wondering, will there be sometime in the future another place like Williams Park? Because I know they're building a lot of stuff to attract more people down there, and for the tourists coming down to the south side of St. Pete in the downtown area, and they don't want to use their car, and they're trying to figure out, where's this bus, where's that bus? Is there going to be some type of hub or center like Williams Park was for everybody just to come, and all the buses were there and easy access, because I think just having some type of, instead of St. Pete building all these high rises and stuff, there's probably a whole bunch of plots out there where PSTA can take ownership of one of those plots and just build a center where most of the buses come around and make it more friendly like Williams Park, because I still hear complaints about, oh, well, the buses don't go to Williams Park anymore. So you just have to figure out where your route goes. And I just think it kind of makes it kind of confusing, especially for the new people that come there, and especially in downtown area, they building buildings, but not thinking about the landscape or sidewalks. I'm just bringing that up if the PSTA is thinking of that in the future, of having like a hub center or something.
To add to that, if I may. Oh.
Thank you. I go every Saturday to get organic vegetables, and I take 79 all the way down. I've learned that route. I know where it ends by the courthouse side, but I can pick it up again on 2nd Avenue South and 5th Street. I figured that out. Lately, I figured out 18, go to Tyrone, pick up 18, and I know where to get off, and I know that's where I get back on. And I use the transit app. But because there is not that, what used to be Williams Park, which I don't want that back, I appreciate it, you know, the, what do we call it, grid system now? Appreciate that. But I'm slowly learning, and I see buses go by, and I see the looper go by, and I'm wondering, will that do me any good? I don't know. And Grand Central would be the hub, but it's still not close enough to downtown. But slowly I'm figuring it out, but I appreciate what you're saying. I'm lost downtown, and I see the buses going past me, and I don't know if that's gonna be good for me. Am I gonna have to race across town? Am I gonna go at this avenue and that street? Will I make it? I don't know, and I got the transit app and trying to coordinate all that. Very slowly, I finally figured out bus 18. Get off and get back on at the same place. At 4th and First Street North.
First North and between 5th and 6th, I think.
Yeah. No, that's too far away from Saturday Market.
No,
which
I
is
mean,
down by the
okay.
stadium.
That's where that's where it ends, but.
Oh, okay,
and
see, I
begins.
never get on it. It must swing around.
But there's,
When I get back on, it'll swing around and then go back up. But see, I will get the tail end before it lands at that 6, see, I don't even know.
Yeah, it's about 6th and,
Yeah.
and First North, somewhere in there between 5th and 6th.
Between 6th and 7th. Which I
6th and
haven't learned that
7th? Oh,
yet, 'cause
okay,
all I've
sorry
learned
about
is.
that.
And that could definitely be a part
Yeah.
of promoting our PSTA services and routes and making sure that folks know and are aware of where our routes go in downtown.
Exactly, it just seems like we're just kind of going more into comments rather than focusing on initiatives.
Right.
So let's refocus right back now to, what are our large umbrella initiatives, not narrowing it down to, something very, very specific, because that's what staff is here. That's the job of staff. Whereas our job and our initiative is to look at a larger, more grand picture of the system as a whole, and how we can promote it and how we can keep it going forward, increase ridership, and tell people about the services that are available. For example, using the different apps. I use Apple Maps, and it tells me exactly where to go in downtown St. Pete and where to, get off, get on, how to transfer, everything. Okay?
So does anyone have any concerns about the promoting PSTA services? Is that something you'd like?
So when you say transit ambassadors, is that us being transit ambassadors, or us going out and recruiting transit ambassadors, or?
That would be you all being transit. This was just a term. This is not how it's named.
Right.
Okay.
You could even name it if you'd like.
So I would say it would probably be more accompanying PSTA staff to go to certain things. So things where we might be there and we might send one staff person and then 2 of you would volunteer to come help us. So like Juan coming out, or if you said, well, I have Wednesday mornings free, and if somebody who needs help learning how to ride the bus, then we would train you how to teach somebody how to ride the bus, and you could even help us make that training even better by being a participant in that. But this would all be either with PSTA staff or sort of guided by.
So we wouldn't wear like little hats and go around the streets.
Well, it's funny you should mention that.
So an example of what this might be is like when we did the Williams Park change, PSTA staff went out with some PSTA board members, and we walked around and with yellow vests and we talked to people. Sometimes we have events at the farmers market, and we might say, well, we're going to be there the next 3 weekends. Juan, Nicole, and Bob are each going to be there. We would like 2 other people to come help us talk to people, things like that.
How I would imagine if this was an initiative was we would take a few months to organize, or maybe have meetings outside the meeting, have a staff, a focus meeting, and we would figure out, let's make a Facebook group for us, or let's create an email list, and then we would start sending each other, there's this event, who signed up, maybe we would have a meetup or something, I don't know, but it would be an initiative, and if our initiative is to get us to be ambassadors, well, that's what that initiative would be. So maybe we're sitting here in February, maybe by August, we'd have a way, and by the way, it would start being multi-year. Just like STAR, once we say, hey, if you're on track, you're part of the initiative. Now, I do all that informally, passing out cards and the like, and if I look at someone on the bus, I always ask them how you do and talk to drivers. But if we made this more of an initiative, we'd probably all get better at it instead of just doing our best like Brad sending out his Facebook posts, we'd get better at it. But if that's our initiative, then by August, we'd all be better at it.
Are you commenting on my Facebook?
I love your Facebook posts.
That's my Friday.
I love it.
Okay, so since this is just an information item, we won't be able to vote on what the initiatives would be. However, it does look like we've kind of decided. And we will vote on this at the next meeting. Before we move on to the next topic, are there any more comments about the initiatives? Okay, thank you, Nicole. So our next topic is going to be the business cards, and as you saw, you already have them in front of you at where you're sitting. Bob is going to give us a little bit of information about how these can be put to good use.
We all owe thanks to Marianne Sobosinski, who worked very hard to get these together and to get them printed in time. We give you a stack of about 25. We'll have them for refills at the meetings. If you should run out between meetings, shoot us an email. We'll get you some more. On the front, actually, I'm guessing this is the front side. It tells people what the track is about, along with the website where they can go to learn more or apply if they'd like to. Then there's, on the back side, a place right at the top where you can write in your name. And you can also let people know if you hear them, if they want to make comments or anything, complaints, psta@engage.net. This comes into my email. I can get it, as well as marketing, communications. And these are just the types of things you want to use. Oh, it's not up there anymore. That first initiative, I mean, a lot of these things when you're out there, and we won't make you wear funny hats, but you can use these in your shirts. Well, I can probably dig up a funny hat if you have your heart set on it.
He has one.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So do I. But you give these out, and we want to encourage. This is the first time we've done this, and it's actually been discussed for quite a while, and it's kind of neat to finally see it come to fruition. And as you're out there riding, spread the word, get people interested, and mobilize our Army to help the overall goal of improving transit in Pinellas County. Yes, sir.
There are people that are interested, but I think the issue is just getting here. They want to be involved, but they don't have, because of their work schedules, they don't have the opportunity to get here. So would I use this and give this card to a rider And if they have any ideas, kind of, I just submit it through an email to you,
Absolutely.
so to speak, and then maybe they can come up with an idea.
You bet. That's one of the reasons we have this on there. We want to hear from them. This gives them an avenue if they can't make it. Yeah, by all means.
Well, it also makes you look less weird.
Is that possible?
Right? So, like, if you start talking to somebody and they're like, all right, you know, then you can say, no, really, I'm official. Right?
Not the bus weirdo.
It's right.
I'm glad you didn't use the word certifiable.
Very nice.
Oh, dear.
Card carrying.
Yeah, right?
That's right. You're all card carrying track members.
Certifiable.
You're gonna have a very difficult time.
If I can interrupt, I did this over a year ago when I found out that the people who do cheap business cards give you free back. I put something similar on the back about TRAC, and so whether I'm giving this to my dentist, what the heck, he can learn about TRAC, or some guy in Dallas, doesn't matter. But when I pass this out on the bus, I give it to them TRAC side up, and they get my name and phone number. I never had Engage ads, so I'll switch this next. And I said, if you get interested and you write me, I can pass you on to Bob, was what I did up until now. This is great, but yeah, that was my way to prove that I really am someone. Here's my name. and so when I start talking to people about TRAC, but it's true, when you start talking to someone on a bus saying, how's the service? How often do you ride it? They start looking at you like, what's going on, you know? Is the bus on time?
They do that to me when I'm in my official shirt and I have a tie on.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much, and like I said, if you run out before the next meeting, let me know, we'll get it to you. We have people going all over the county on their way homes, we'll just have them drop them off. Thanks.
And our last information item, back to Nicole. And she's already talked to a lot of you about the polo shirts.
Yes.
So I know there was a sheet back here where you can put down the color and size that you need.
Yes. Not only will you be card carrying TRAC members, you will now also be wearing, or be T-shirt wearing TRAC members, polo shirt wearing TRAC members. So we have a few sample sizes back there if you hadn't had a chance to look at them. Essentially, these shirts, we would like to see you wear them in official PSTA capacity only. You don't have to wear them to the TRAC meeting, but in case you do ever come out to events with us, in case you do accompany PSTA staff to meetings, to community events, riding the bus for surveys, whatever that might look like, that's when you can wear your PSTA TRAC shirt. The three colors that we have to choose from are a black, a maroon, and a royal blue. Just a heads up on the royal blue, the logo will be one color, white, because that's the best way to do that royal blue with our blue logo, is just to make it white all around. And then it will also say Transit Riders Advisory Committee on it. So you will be branded as TRAC with a PSTA logo. And so the sample sizes we have are a medium, large, and 2XL for the men's shirt size. Those have the 3 buttons. And it has a different cut and longer sleeves. And so if you're a size that we don't have, then let us know and we can see, are you too large for the large, but too small for the 2XL, then you probably fit in an XL. Similarly, for the women's, we have a medium, large, and extra large. And the cut is a little bit different. It has shorter sleeves and then just a slimmer cut on the waist. So please take a look at those. And before you leave today, we would just love your size and preferred color. And then for those that are not here, by the end of the week. All right.
Any questions about the t-shirt, about the polo shirts?
Fantastic.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Do we have any other member comments? I know we were kind of already going into a little bit of the comment section. We were talking about the initiatives, but is there anything that we didn't touch on? Anything that somebody would like to say? Yes?
It was brought to my attention today by 2 riders that the speaker over on the buses are a little bit too loud, especially for special announcements. Kind of get louder than other announcements. It's kind of...
And the voice sounds...
Yeah, it's
like, please.
overbearing. It's crazy. So that was brought to my attention today.
Okay.
About turning the volume down.
That's actually being looked into. After the last service change, there was some issue. We send the announcements up to a group called Clever Devices in New York, and somehow, and you're right, we've got a couple of issues. One, they're too loud. Some of them are really loud. And others, there are times, I experienced it on the 60, when they start and don't stop.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
both issues we're working on that right now to get this resolved.
One more thing on that, a lot of times the announcements for the stops come so close to the stop that you couldn't possibly ring the bell and get off at that stop. So there ought to be a little more lead time on this.
And we can do that. If you let us know what the stops are, we'll send it up and have them reprogrammed so it comes in sooner.
Brian?
I've been talking to some riders that they're having issues with the new bus shelters. And it has to do with rain and weather. You have a barrier on the right side, which is glass, but the rest of it is just all wind and rain. And compared to the older shelters, there was always a barrier. And with these new ones, they're not, so you feel like you might as well be sitting outside with no barrier at all because of the wind and rain coming from all directions. So there's a design, it might be aesthetically pleasing to look at, but there's some design issues with weathering.
Yeah, we've heard that about the rain, and the mesh is designed to let air flow in.
When it's
so that
boiling hot.
When it's hot, and so, I mean, I think we're just gonna have to address that and just choose one of the.
Okay.
We've taken a few of those newer design shelters and installed a clear piece of plexiglass in it to test out. The airflow is one thing, and also if you remember with our older legacy shelters, huge issues of vandalism where the glass would be smashed out.
I got you. So you're having difficulty with design issues all across the board. And it sounds like it's a lose-lose situation.
You know, it can be. We try and design shelters that is the best of both worlds, and that lasts. So we've outfitted probably half a dozen or so with this clear type of plexi and those mesh. So we'll see how that works out.
Okay. And is there any other comments?
I just want to make
Yes, sir.
one quick comment, and that all I was going to say is PSTA is my only transportation that I have, and thank goodness for it, because I wouldn't be able to go anywhere at all. So on a positive note, I mean, thank goodness we have it. And I've seen lots of improvements with the shelters and everything else, so I think PSTA is doing a good job. So, you know, thank PSTA, yay.
All right. Is that it? All right. Our next meeting is going to be on March 19th, so we will see everyone then. And have a good St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you.
Irish, I
For any of you who live in the Clearwater area, you can, before you even practice, you can become an ambassador, and we will invite you to our opening of spring break transit town hall on lovely Clearwater Beach, Friday, March 1st.
I'll email you.
We'll email you.
Rodeo.
Come join me.